I the jerk for telling my mom that the speech she wants me to make to my stepdad is not happening as she wants? My father died suddenly when I was 7 years old. My parents were in the middle of their divorce at the time. My mother was already dating my stepfather, but they broke up 2 months after my father died because he was introduced to me, and I had the biggest fit ever. It was so out of character for me that family members stepped in and told my mother she needed to focus on me. My stepfather was hurt that everyone was so against them, so they broke up. They got back together when I was 10 and married when I was 13. By the time they got back together, he decided he was going to prove that he could be a great dad to me, and he devoted a lot of time to getting close to me. I liked him a lot, but I never let him be my new dad. This hurt him deeply, but my mother is bothered by it more. When I was 14, she told me all the terrible things my father had done to her, while also admitting she did terrible things to him, and asked me if that was really the man I wanted to idealize and pine after, instead of accepting a wonderful man who was willing to give us a second chance after the incident the first time. I told my mother that my father could be a terrible husband to her, like she was a terrible wife to him, but they were still my parents and nobody could compare. I do have a positive relationship with my stepfather, but I would not say I love him as strongly as my parents. When I started planning my wedding earlier this year, I asked him to escort my mother down the aisle and asked him if he wanted to pick a special pose for us for a photo of just the two of us. He accepted, but then asked me about walking me down the aisle and performing a dance with me. I told him I was walking with my fiancée because she and I decided we'd like to walk together, and we weren't doing any special dances other than our first dance. He scolded me like a child for not giving him a more traditional role. During his disappointed period, he told my mother, and she told me I should make a speech to him during the wedding. Then she handed me this one she prepared that thanked him for being an amazing dad, that I couldn't have asked for a better second dad, and heavily leaned into the whole idea of him being my dad. It even called him the most important man in my life. I told her I could include him in the toast, but the speech was not happening like she wanted. She told me this would make him feel way better. I told her I would not stand there and lie. I told her I do not see him as my dad. She told me I should and that he deserves it. Then she told me I was being a brat. Am I the asshole? You haven't done anything wrong. It's pretty ballsy of your mom to give you a prepared speech about your own wedding. Your mom had 2 weddings and this one is yours. They're making your wedding about them, which is egocentric as hell. You've looked at the situation rationally, and no real father would pressure you this way if he truly cared about you. Am I the jerk for taking care of myself early postpartum instead of catering to my in-laws? I recently had my first baby. Not only was the pregnancy difficult, but postpartum has been trying as well. I have had issues healing from my cesarean section, in addition to mentally having a hard time. Family and friends are very sweet and have offered to come over and help, but I am not the type of person who asks for help. I tend to self-isolate and get through it on my own, probably from childhood trauma forcing me to be independent at a very young age. I do not like to burden other people if I do not have to. My husband and I were at a point where we were ready to invite immediate family and grandparents over to host. When we called my husband's grandparents, they were very short with us about the invitation and declined to come over. We were very confused about their tone but figured they had something else bothering them. After a couple of days, the conversation still felt weird, so we called them again to check in with them. My grandmother-in-law was again short with my husband. He asked her if something was wrong and she unleashed. She was hurt by not seeing us sooner. She thinks it is odd that we have been keeping her great-granddaughter from family because back when she had children, she was surrounded by family early postpartum. She said she does not even feel like a great-grandmother and does not even believe that her great-granddaughter exists. We were both shocked and in disbelief by her comments. Communication is a two-way street, and we had not heard from her at all since she had met the baby in the hospital. It feels hurtful that we have just been trying to stay afloat the first couple of weeks and are now being accused of keeping our daughter from her. I could understand her frustration if we had been blowing her off, but that is not the case. I thought people were supposed to give grace to new parents. Due to my isolating tendencies, I want to distance myself even more and not have to waste my energy on toxic family members. However, I know that life is short and it would not be fair to my daughter or husband. Am I in the wrong for not reaching out to them sooner? Am I in the wrong for thinking her accusations are unfair? You did the right thing. The older generation might not understand, but you're doing the right thing by prioritizing yourself and adjusting during this time. Your recovery and the baby's health trump anything and everything else. It's becoming very normal for parents and the baby to spend time just the 3 of them when the baby is first born. Take care of yourself and your family. Am I the jerk for telling my dad he disrespected my mom's memory? My mom died when I, a 16-year-old female, was 6 years old, and my brother, a 20-year-old male, was 10 years old. She had created these scrapbooks of memories and letters for us, and she encouraged us to be a part of creating them. My brother was writing in his before he died, but I mostly drew or made small notes. When my mom died, my brother wrote in both of ours and encouraged me to keep drawing, making notes, and later writing. Dad never had much to do with them. He always said it was more of mom's thing and he was never good with words, written or otherwise, which is true. When I was 10 years old, he remarried. His wife asked about the book a lot and offered to take over the book for me, though not for my brother because he was always rude to her. I said no. She asked multiple times. I told her no, and that my mom had not wanted my dad's new wife to take over what she started. She was hurt when I told her, and my dad suggested that I did not need to say something like that to her and should forget about what my mom would have wanted. I told him I had already said no before and she kept asking. I also told him that it was true, and he knew it. He said my mom was selfish for that and that it put him in a bad place for remarrying. I told him that it was not my fault and that I could understand why she would not want her replacement to do it. He told me his wife was not a replacement and was special and important to us in her own right. I said she was acting like she was my mom's replacement when she refused to take no for an answer. He asked me to see the positive instead of the negative. My brother was more rude after he heard about what went down. She kept asking every couple of weeks since then. I always said no. A few days ago, I came home from school early and my dad and his wife were home. She had my book out and was trying to think of something to write in it. I snatched it off her before she could actually do it. She started crying and I started yelling. Dad told me to calm down and said she was trying to show her love. I told him I did not care and that he knew I did not want her writing in it. I also told him that he knew it was not for her. He told me to calm down and said that I only said that because of what my mom said. I told him he disrespected her memory by almost letting it happen. He asked how I could say that, claiming he loved my mom and had her longer than me, and that I was only trying to hurt him by saying that. Then he told me my mom had been dead a long time now. I told him I know, but he only cares about his new wife now. He went into my room afterward and told me I really hurt him and should not accuse him of disrespecting the woman who made him a dad. Am I the antagonist? Your dad's wife shouldn't be writing in your mom's book. This was very disrespectful to you and the boundaries you established around an emotionally meaningful item. The easiest fix is to tell her and your dad they need to start a new book for his current family. Please hide the book or give it to your brother to keep safe at his place. Your dad's wife was way out of line, and he should have ensured that the book was kept safe rather than enabling her. Am I the jerk for telling my family I'm done accepting any invites from them? I'll hold myself accountable and admit when I was younger I did some really terrible things to my family, mostly stealing, and I was arrested when I was 17 for my behavior. This started when I was maybe 13 or 14. I stole money, gaming consoles, and my parents' car, which is what got me arrested. I was very angry during this period of my life, and I also yelled and cursed at them a lot. When I was arrested, I didn't see them again for over a decade. At the time, I was still so angry that I am pretty sure my last words to them for over a decade were something like hoping they would go to hell. Getting arrested was the best moment of my young life. Before I started stealing, I had some other issues. Undiagnosed ADHD meant I had a terrible attention span and inability to stay still. It embarrassed my family, who gave me a very hard time. My parents were always correcting me, and my siblings were always saying they didn't want to be seen with me. I got yelled at daily for not being normal. My siblings started making stuff up. They accused me of stealing their toy, when I hadn't, or spilling something intentionally. Again, I hadn't. They'd blame me for something they did, like broken glass, and back each other up. They joined other kids in calling me a weirdo because I was so all over the place. My parents never believed me. They told me I was too out of control for them to take my word for anything. Eventually, I got so angry that I started doing things and wanted to get back at them for all of this. In 2021, after 13 years, I made contact with them for the first time. I reached out and apologized for my behavior. I told them I wanted to have a relationship with them again, but if they weren't interested, I would understand. 5 months later, I got a reply from my parents who said after talking it over, everyone wanted me back in the family. I was already married to my wife at that point, which surprised them. I apologized again in person. I showed them I had changed and was sorry, but they keep bringing up the past and telling others what I did, or cracking jokes about not accepting gifts or watching their wallets around me. It's been a constant thing. My wife called them out on it and told them if they were agreeing to forgive me and move forward, all that should be left behind. They said it doesn't mean they lose the right to bring it up. She said they were trying to humiliate me with it. I told them I'd like for them to stop bringing it up, that it was difficult to move forward if that was thrown out to put me on the spot. I also reminded them a lot of stuff my siblings mentioned was stuff they made up. They acted like it didn't matter. This was what led me to decide this. My wife and I talked because we're expecting a baby, and it's just not a good environment for our child. My family is upset that I told them I will no longer accept any invites from them, and it's best we stop forcing this. Am I the asshole? Definitely, nothing you have done here makes me think you are the jerk. It sounds like the family is upset because they lost someone to bullying. It's important to live your life and ensure your future children won't be victims of the same stuff. If your family isn't positive, it's totally fine to limit contact with them. Am I the jerk for pointing out to my mother that the reason I don't have a lot of pictures is because of the comments she made about my smile? I, a 25-year-old female, and my husband Jake, a 25-year-old male, got married a few days ago and just came back from our honeymoon the day before yesterday. Today we went to visit my parents because they had been insisting we should have dinner together now that we're officially family. I am an only child, and none of my grandparents are alive, so it was just me, Jake, my mom, and my dad. After dinner, we were looking through the picture albums my parents had. Some of them were pictures of my parents when they were younger, pictures of me when I was younger, and many pictures of the vacations we took. My dad had a camera, and he loved using it. Jake noticed that the album only had 3 to 4 pictures of me smiling after I reached my teenage years. He asked me why I didn't smile for pictures. I met Jake when we were 19, and by that point, I had already gone through therapy because of bullying in school and other issues. I was a lot better and therefore didn't talk much about the past. Even if I did, everything that happened with my parents seemed small compared to what I faced at school, so I never mentioned it, or it just never stood out to me. Jake then explained how much he loves my smile and my 2 big front teeth. He often commented that I looked like a bunny when I smiled, and it was almost healing for me. I mentioned that when I was 12, one of my mother's friends made a comment about how I smile so wide, showing all of my teeth, and said it wasn't pretty but disgusting. My mother relayed this to me without adding any comments of agreement or disagreement. I said that I remembered it throughout my teenage years and the bullying just made it worse. I was always afraid of showing my teeth when I smiled, so I never smiled in general. To be honest, I don't think much of it anymore. I only really care about what Jake thinks, and he only has positive things to say about me. At one point, I wanted to get a dental procedure done, but after I started therapy, I decided not to. The remark wasn't supposed to highlight my mother as the bad guy, but it seems like that's what it did. My mom and dad were both there and heard it. My mom got pretty angry at me for making something like that up. I told her that it was true, but she said she didn't remember. It's understandable that I remember, given how big of an impact it had on me, but I'm afraid I hurt my mother. We're really close, and I don't want to strain our relationship. My dad is going back and forth on who's wrong and who's right, so here I am to get my verdict. Your actions were justified. It's common for some parents to give their kids insecurities and then act like the victim when confronted about it later. It's telling that your mom's reaction was to call you a liar rather than admit she didn't remember. She probably remembers and is just ashamed. Am I the jerk for telling my spouse we need to put our child back in diapers? I am a 37-year-old male, and my wife is a 39-year-old female. We have a wonderful 10-year-old daughter. Our daughter has had a bedwetting problem her whole life and has always worn pull-ups, good nights, for it. She also has ADHD and emotional problems. Recently, my wife wanted to try and stop the bedwetting and asked her doctor if there were ways to stop it. Her doctor said it can help to take the child out of nighttime pull-ups completely and let them recognize when they have wet the bed. It is supposed to make the child recognize they wet the bed so they can start waking up when it happens and then learn to wake up to go to the bathroom. A little more than a month ago, we told our daughter that we would stop buying her pull-ups and teach her how to help us with the laundry. She was excited at first and thought it would stop her bedwetting. It has been over a month and our daughter still wets the bed every night. She's getting very upset about still wetting the bed. I know she feels like she is letting us down, which breaks my heart. She is losing sleep because she is wetting the bed at night and being woken up by it. She has less time to play during the day because she is helping us with extra laundry. I really think it would be better for all of us if our daughter went back to wearing pull-ups at night. She would get the sleep she needs, be able to have more fun during the day, and not feel so down. I suggested this to my wife, and she got very defensive, saying our daughter would hate being told she will wear diapers again, and that it would be terrible to waste all the effort we have already put in to make her stop wetting the bed and just go back to diapers. I told her our daughter is already feeling down about wetting the bed every night, and wearing pull-ups again will make things better for her and us. She got very upset, stormed off, and has not talked to me since. I feel like I said or did something wrong. I only want what is best for our family, but obviously what I said upset my wife very much. Am I the antagonist? Cutting off fluids a few hours before bed and making sure to go to the bathroom right before sleeping can help with bedwetting. Setting alarms during the night to wake up and use the bathroom might also be effective. It's important to rule out any medical reasons for bedwetting by consulting a specialist. Hopefully, these strategies will help in finding a solution for your daughter. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.